and welcome to our UPCA dance party today.
So fun.
Just trying to get the energy going. So we'll give everybody a few more minutes to hop on. And yeah, welcome. I'm pretty excited to see what we have, what Susanna and Mikkel have to present to us today. So, but honestly, we'll give everybody a few more minutes. So welcome, welcome. There we go. I like that. We can just do like a, oh gosh, what's it called when people just pop up? Yes, the flash mob. We can do a remote flash mob all across the state. That would be awesome. Wouldn't that be the best?
Hey, Araceli, will you mute yourself? Just because I'm afraid that we're in the same building, and I'm sure if I get really loud, it will start picking something up, and so I don't want to.
Start squealing at us. So while people are coming on, I don't want to take Susanna and Mikkel's time, but I was asked to remind you about the Steve James event. He's having a live event and the VIP event. So I send out a flyer, or Taylor did, thank you, Taylor, send out a flyer about that. So just refer back if you're interested in that, RSVP, and as soon as possible so that they can get a good count. And I am not gonna waste any time. Also, please remember to send in your nominations for the UPCA exec committee. I'll resend that out today. We need to choose people that are already on the committees. I didn't see that in the bylaws, but I need to double check. Apparently we're supposed to choose someone for the Bryce Adult Conference and the Youth Leadership Training, who are already serving on that committee, to be the vice chair because they've got some background in that. So I'll resend that out with a list of each of those, and then the other positions that's open. So please send those in. We can't just randomly pick. We need your input, and you guys know who will be good in those positions. So get that sent out today, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn the time. I think Mikkel's gonna go first and just help you understand how to navigate the resources that we've been gathering. And then Susanna's going to walk us through some policy stuff. So I'm really excited for both of these presentations. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. I am going to share my screen and just share a few, just what Teresa said, a few of our online resources. All right, first off, who knew that we had a Facebook page? I did, yeah, Heidi knew. Teresa knows. So we have an online Facebook group, and on this group, if you want to be a member, you just type in the Utah Prevention Coalition Association name, long name, I know, but put that into the Facebook search bar, and then you can be added. You have to request to be added since it's a private group, but once you're added, you have access to at least 265 members, prevention specialists across Utah, and coalition coordinators. And here it's kind of a nice way to network and engage with other people across the state and hear what people are doing. And so we have people either putting on announcements. Let's scroll down. We have people talking about awesome things that they're doing in their areas. We also have people asking questions about implementation. And so if you have something that you're working on and you want input from other people across the state, this is a great place to do it. You can also email, but I think that it's a blind CC when we do emails to everyone. So this is kind of a nice way to also put faces to names and connect with people that you might have met at Bryce Canyon or fall conference. We also have reminders. This time I put an event reminder, and I'll probably keep doing that for the UPCA webinars. So if you don't know about our webinar, this is on you, because we're sending Facebook. If you don't use Facebook, that's understandable. You do your thing. But if you want to be on the emails, contact somebody on the committee. So Teresa, just message in the chat. If you know somebody that's not here and they're not on the email list, put their email. If they want to be added, just have them contact Teresa and we can add them to that list. So that's our Facebook group. And if you prefer another mode of transportation or another mode of reminders or communication, let us know, because we want it to be helpful. We want it to be helpful for you. And so if most people aren't using Facebook, that would be good feedback for us as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have a website. So this is the Utah Prevention Coalition Association website. It's called utahprevention.org. I'll put that down in the chat after this. But on this website, this is a really good resource for us coalitions across Utah. So if you're trying to get in touch with another coalition, or if there's a community member that's like, hey, what prevention is being done in my community, they can go to this website. You can click on Utah Coalitions, and we have a list of all the coalitions in Utah and the area that they're located in. So we have our Grantsville City Communities That Care located in Tooele. You can click on it, learn more. We have a lot. And I know that just in my county, we've had a couple of new coalitions join. And so their information isn't on here. If your coalition or somewhere in your community, there's a coalition that's not listed on here, again, let us know, let me know, and we can work on getting them added to the website. So I will put my email in the chat box. So that's the Utah Coalition section. There is an about section if you're wondering who we are. Teresa's information is here in the contact us area. So if there is a person that's like, hey, I can't find the coalition in my area, Teresa is very well connected with all of us across the state, so we can help get them connected. So again, if your coalition information isn't here, let me know. In our resources tab, this is the tab that I think is most useful to the people here on this call. So over here, we have some links to evidence-based prevention. We have a lot of Communities That Care coalitions. We have a lot of Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, CADCA, or DFC coalitions. And then over here, we have our UPCA training. So if there are any PowerPoints that we get that somebody gives us after their presentation, they will link it to us, and we have access to their PowerPoints. So this was Emily Klein's presentation for motivational interviewing. It's right here on the website. So if you need it, it's there. If we have any upcoming conferences, the links will be put down here, put under this section. And then again, our UPCA monthly webinars are the link to join. This is again Teresa's email. Teresa, if I'm putting your email everywhere, then if you're like, this is too much, I can disperse it a little bit, but Teresa's our go-to. And then lastly, we have our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is a little bit new, and in this channel we have our recordings of videos. So if there's a webinar that you missed that you wanted to revisit, it's most likely going to be uploaded here. And so here we have community readiness with Logan Reed, why it's important. We have relationships and policy work. This was the video that Rob and Logan created in our Bryce Canyon this year. And so that video is available as well, has great information about relationship building in policy work. We have bylaws, we have the new Sharp web tool. If you missed a presentation, you're like, how do I use this Sharp web tool? The recording is right here. And so, yeah, we have a bunch of them. There's another one I'm going to add. I'll add this recording as well. And so, yeah, if there's something that's not on here that you're like, hey, can you add this to the YouTube channel? We will do our best to add it. And that's all I have. Oh, great. It looks like we have some people adding things in the chat. Llamas are the bomb. Yes, llamas are the bomb. Is there anything that anybody has to say before I turn
I have a
the time
question.
over? Yeah.
So the webpage, the utahprevention.org, that's open to all, right? That's not password protected or anything, right?
Nope, not password protected at all.
And same with the YouTube page.
Same
That
with the
public?
YouTube page. It is public. So if you're trying to get if you're trying to get on the YouTube page, I believe I think it's just the Utah Prevention Coalition.
Utah Coalition is
Association.
all it says.
Yeah, UPCA webinar, and you can get on there. I'll put a link there as well so that you guys can.
It's on the Utah Prevention page. I just clicked the link to get there.
Oh,
very bottom there.
nice. Hey, look at that. It worked. I just made that change yesterday, so that's great. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. I will let Susanna take over then. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, I just really quick before Susanna goes, I just want, Mikkel, thank you so much, because I know all the resources are so valuable to all of us, and I didn't have the skill set or the patience to put everything in the organized manner that Mikkel did that, and she just stepped right up and did that. So I love that we can just one-stop shop, and find things, and thank you for doing that. So I won't take any more of your time, Susanna, but thank you so much, Mikkel. You're awesome.
First, I should unmute myself, and then I need to go to this. Okay, so you can see the take on policy. That's what it is. It's the big screen, right? Okay, great. So I was going to play 80s music, and you'll notice a theme with some of the stuff I have in here, like take on policy to find your aha moment. So, and those of you who are my age or like the 80s will get that. So they asked me to speak about policy. I am currently the policy chair, right? Which is weird. But there's a lot that goes on, and we ideally should be talking about this before now because it's now November, but no time like the present. So let me keep going. So I have a poll, and we're going to use the chat. Okay. And because we couldn't figure out how to do it very well, and I didn't want to go back in and out the screen. So the first one, how comfortable are you with policy? Just whatever you interpret that question as, how comfortable are you with policy? Okay. Leanne, that happy face doesn't count. Okay. You got a good, okay, I was gonna say, doesn't count. So it looks like we have a good mix of people that are really, really comfortable with it and people that are a little new to it. And so that's perfect for this presentation, because some of you who are more comfortable with it, you're going to hear some things you probably already have done, but hopefully we'll share some new things with you. Oh, and I would agree with Rob's assessment of himself. It's a 10. Okay. So the next question I have for you is how comfortable are you with reaching out to legislators? Again, 1 is low, 5 is really comfortable. Okay. Okay. I like seeing these higher numbers. There's a few of you that might feel uncomfortable with that, and that's okay, but I love seeing some of these higher numbers with reaching out to our legislators. That's awesome. I like pie too, Lisa. Thank you. Last, just a yes or no. How many of you have reached out to a legislator? It could have been through email. It could have been through face-to-face, phone call, or a letter, anything. Oh, my heart is so happy.
And I'll get it.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's good for an assessment to kind of know where you guys are all at. So let's keep going. So let's talk about why we need to wake up and get involved in coalition and get involved with policy. For coalitions, policy is one of the most cost-effective for them. It usually doesn't cost any more money for them. It's about time, and it's going to have a much longer impact on your community. So I'll use some examples. We've seen city ordinances. So this isn't even at the legislative level. This is at a city local level. City ordinances that have changed communities and that are still in place that then ultimately change the landscape of that community. Even eliminating alcohol sales to youth started as a local initiative and then became policy at the state level. So those are all things that they, even without the money, they were there to improve community level outcomes. So this is why we really stress getting involved with coalition or with policy. So I keep thinking coalition. So when's the best time to start? Now. I know that we really, like I said, we really should have started this conversation probably May. After the last legislative session had ended. That's a great time to start working with your legislators or your key leaders at that point to start looking at policy. And for the most part of what we're discussing today, we're looking at the state level policy or national level policy. And what I've done is that I have a couple of places on there, the le.utah.gov, that's the legislative website that will tell you the bills that are playing.
First, when I started at NCC, when I was
Hey, Tammy.
young, I could have really gotten in.
Tammy, can you mute yourself, please?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. So with the le.utah.gov, that's where you can actually search through some of the past bills and some of the upcoming bills that will happen. Right now, it's a little harder to navigate because I'm not finding, and again, Rob can jump in at any time and share insight on this. Because right now what it has is for 2022 still. I haven't seen stuff for 2023 unless you go into each commission or work groups. So that's where I could find some of the upcoming bills, committees, not commissions. So the other one is I put on the board district. So that's a state board of education's school board members districts. Why did I put that there? So that you know who your own school board member is that's representing you on the state level. And you can then reach out to them and find out what their positions are, what their questions are. And then also vote.utah.gov will help you narrow down even some of the more local city council people, county commissioners. It'll help you get there and it's going to encourage you to vote. But that will help you find, so each area has their own, like Weber County elections has their own as well. And finally, UPAC, so Utah Prevention Advisory Council, which is a subset of the USAVE, and I'm not going to go into that acronym right this second because it keeps changing. So I have to use SUMAC in my head, but so like Utah Substance Use and Mental Health Advisory committee. But Liz Kelch is over that, and she is a policy queen, and she has all of the stuff that will, once we start the legislative session, UPAC will meet weekly, and Rob is involved with that. And they'll have kind of some updates on policy that are happening for each of kind of the disciplines. So whether it's mental health, substance use, youth, prevention oriented, or even mental health or treatment. One of the things I want to talk about is that you really should be working now and not expecting anything to come of it this legislative session necessarily, but you're building for long term. And that's what you want to see. Okay. With those connections, you're going to be able to build that relationship and trust between you and those members of either Congress or our state legislature. It also means you'll build relationships and trust between our state board, with your own local school boards, with your city council and your county commissioners. So when you're looking for connections, let's say you're not a Craig Povey or a Rob Timorin or anyone that's really connected to other legislators or key leaders, the ones that are on your coalitions may have connections. And I'm going to call out my own coalition because I know she's on here. But Julie Anderson is a great asset to our coalition. Why? Because she's been involved with policy work for decades. And she has connections with sitting and past representatives for our community, which means that when we have questions or want them to participate with us, she's the one that can reach out and get people to come. Having connections with other partners in our area that maybe have already built and established relationships. So United Way or your health departments that have legislative breakfasts, or you have a legislative breakfast. Those are all opportunities for you to build relationships with your key leaders and your legislators in your community that are yours, not just ones at the state level. And guess what? If you use your youth, they're going to listen to the youth. I am obviously really, really young and with it and hip because I danced to ABBA. But there's also something to be said when you have a high school senior that goes into an office and pitches a policy plan or says, hey, I'm really concerned about this voting record, they're going to listen to them more. And that's a really powerful tool to be using. The only thing I would tell you is make sure that they are coached and they are ready to answer their questions and that they're using, again, evidence-based science. I put the lyrics on there just because I'm sure people are trying to figure out why I'm putting like these titles of songs. But I was listening to some good music as I'm throwing this PowerPoint together. So the other one is the Utah Association of Counties. All of our county commissioners sit on that and they participate and they have their own policy and statements that they do. That's the organization that oversees the Utah Behavioral Health Committee Council. I don't remember what the C stands for. And that is where, I'm just making sure that, that's where they can start setting up their own policy that relates to the county, and they do it as a group. When they looked at some of the cannabis policy a few years ago, they're the ones that kind of reviewed it and made a statement or a stance on it, which I then again reached out to my own county commissioners and said, hey, do you want to talk about this? So always be willing to reach out. Okay. So I'm going to say, don't just like, I'll use my own personal example. There is a former representative that we had, a former senator that we had that I didn't always agree with. And it wasn't that we only say the negative or fight or try to convince them to do something, but also appreciate what they are doing, that they are listening, that they are coming to meetings, or that they are giving you the time of day even. Be thankful and say that to them. engage them again, not just only during the legislative session, but throughout the year. What are their passions? Are they really engaged with law enforcement? If that's their passion, then look for ways to connect and improve the prevention and law enforcement. Invite them to the EASY Summit, but be proactive. One of the things that we've looked at over the past few years is that we often are trying to react to everything that goes on. We're not producing or working with our coalitions and our legislators and our policymakers to create new policy at different levels. Instead, we're responding to what they come up with, which is not from us. There were times probably 15, 20 years ago when Utah County's coalition, that was the SMART coalition, that's now the Utah Valley Drug Prevention Coalition. I hope that's it. Sorry, Miguel.
You got it.
Okay. They actually had the former Representative Brad Daw on their committee, and he helped draft some great prescription drug policy. And because of their efforts and their collaboration, they were able to do that. And that's the kind of stuff we want to see. But again, it wasn't just made up in November or December. They worked with him throughout the year. And they really brought him along and saw what his passions were and what he wanted to see changed. So that's what it is. Don't wait for some other lobbyist or other group to come up with it, because we're never going to be able to compete just with the funding on that, because we don't have enough funding. But we do want to do, hey, here's some great policy. Richard Nance and Art Brown are great to know about alcohol policy. But what I have listed here are other places that talk about policy and effective evidence-based policy. So PIRE, so Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, had put out some policy briefs of like, this is the most effective tobacco or alcohol policy that would be good for communities. I'd have to go sift through and find it for you, but that's a place to start. The Center for Alcohol Policy and Alcohol Law, that's another one that has some great policy that already exists that maybe we are missing or we could implement locally. Okay, then the cannabis one is still new. And so there's a lot of stuff that I would really be thoughtful of. Look for the research related to it. Smart approaches to marijuana. Sam, I'm at the office and it wouldn't let me access it. Go figure. But that would be one I would look at. Note, I believe that they have lobbying. I don't know if they have lobbying, but I know there's been some things with them, but they do have some good ideas. And if you're looking for stuff, Kevin Sabet has a couple books out that are good on that. And the other one is the Healthy Places, Utah Healthy Places Index. There's actually a section in there, if you play around with it, that you can go see policy suggestions, which is very upstream. And it isn't always legislative opportunities. It could be very local, things that you're working on. Kai Nordfeld down in Southern Utah is very active with the bicycle, I don't know what it's called, Bicycle Collective, but it's not it, but it's the group down there that's increasing the number of bike lanes, which relates to physical health, which would then in turn relates to our mental and substance use related health. So those are all things that you could look at of changing the landscape and the environment of your community, which that is policy. Getting that support from a community or a local city is considered policy. Another thing from Southern Utah, which they use some data showing how many licenses that were available for, or business licenses for vaping, and they changed some of the business or some of the, I think it was density stuff, and I'd have to lean on Heidi to remember everything that you all did down there, but that was something that they did very locally, and they connected with their county commissioners, city council people, mayors, schools, parks and rec, all of that to then celebrate what they were able to do. Okay. Of course, you have to have Rick Roll in here, right? See, some people know what I'm talking about. Okay, keep up the connection, celebrate. at least once a year, either right before the session or right after the session, or during whenever works for your coalition, celebrate, invite them, engage them, even if they did absolutely nothing for you. Bring them in and make sure that they're a part of it, because then they see the youth, then they see the people that are passionate about improving the community outcomes in their area. Engage with them on every level that you can. At one point, I know Michelle Swap, oh, it's Alan now, sorry. I'm so good at remembering people's names.
No,
Anyway.
you got it. It's swap.
Okay. See, I'm getting old enough now that I'm confusing things. Michelle Swap in Utah County was a part of doing a project where they looked at all the legislators, and Richard Nance pushed on this to see which legislators, not just the Utah County ones, but were supportive and involved with policy that impacted prevention. And they kind of gave them a grade. I don't even know if they still do that, but that's something that even you could do with your own area. Places like Ballotpedia, that's like hit or miss, or, you know, watchdog groups are looking at it. But if you're looking at the policy that comes from, say, UPAC that Liz Couch has produced, and then you say, go back to see which of your legislators or your county commissioners supported or spoke up against it, you could grade them and say, this is what we see, and have, again, the youth be the ones that speak out and say, this is great. This is what we want you to work on. Here's what we see as issues in our community. And I think that's where you really have to push. But don't wait till January 25th, and don't wait till obviously now or December to try and come up with a new policy. We don't want to wait. We will be having our Capitol night, our policy night, where we invite our legislators. It'd be the first week rather than midweek. And we'll get the dates for you and make sure that that's sent out now so you guys can start planning for that. Because that's what we heard feedback from the legislators, that they didn't want to, by the end of the session, they're crazy and they're stressed and they just couldn't do it. So instead of doing, oh, we're going to wait till the end, we're going to do it at the beginning. And it should be the week before CATCA is my understanding, if you're all going to CATCA. So, questions? Okay, exit out of that. Okay, is this a question? I know, see? I'm telling you, I could totally give you all sorts of stuff as I was listening to things. I actually had Blondie on there, but then I looked at the lyrics and went, that's not appropriate. I shouldn't have that one. So I took that one off. I tried to be appropriate, but there are times where, like, I have all of these things open actually. And I think that it's really useful for anyone on a coalition. Take time to look at it and get familiar with it, those websites, because Craig Povey. Well, at least it's not just swing music that you listen to, Craig. But to be fair, I listen to swing music too, because it's wonderful music. But those are the things. It's sometimes when you're looking through the, like, even the legislative website or Hired, it can seem really overwhelming. And the issue is you don't want it just to be overwhelming. You got to spend a little time here and there. Again, if you know that you're trying to find ways to slowly integrate some of the legislators or your county commissioners, start with the le.utah.gov and find who's in your area. That's the first place I would start. Or go to your city council and say, can you come help us? Or what are some things you're passionate about? What are things you want to see happen in the community? How can we help you? The what's in it for me is a big component for our politicians and our policymakers. So really listen and listen. That's the hard part, is listening to them so that maybe they want to say hi. Oh, so sorry, Jilly, just like listening, looking at these side things here. Chat is great. I miss it terribly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if you can answer it or who can answer it, but we're working on our key leader dinner right now in January. We usually try to meet with people before Capitol Hill Day in February. I was just wondering if there's anything that we're working on as a state, or if we have talking points yet that we can start pushing out. I was also wondering, I know that SHARP was a conversation, and so we've discussed SHARP among some of our coalitions here, and we passed out, we were given talking points from, I believe it was Bob Harrison or from the state, and I'm just wondering if there's been more than that, or if there's going to be a push for education, or if there's something that we can tag along, or if we should just build our own thing. What's happening?
Those are great questions. Rob, are you at a place that you can speak? Because I'm looking really quickly in my files to see if I have anything from the policy discussions we've had.
Yeah, so yes is the answer. So the UPN, so the Utah Prevention Network, so all of the county coordinators, prevention coordinators, put together a statement that can be utilized. There's information also that Mary Johnston from Buck Harrison sent out to county coordinators that has a whole bunch of information that can be utilized. So there are resources out there. Yes, you can use those resources and put your own messaging to your own school boards on SHARP, and that's kind of where we're at now. If people haven't gotten kind of an update as to where we are, last week, within the past 2 weeks, maybe I'll say it, the State Board of Education sent out a statement letter that neither endorsed the SHARP survey, but it also didn't say like, hey, we are against the SHARP survey. It's just kind of a factual letter. And that is where the board is at this point. They are allowing districts, which districts have always had the opportunity to opt into the survey anyway on their own without the board. But we're at the place where it is districts that have the ability to opt in to the SHARP survey. And yeah, so opportunities for communities and coalitions to work with their own local school board and tell them of the importance of SHARP to their community and to their schools. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. You can reach out and talk to your school boards. The good news is that most school boards are jumping on and have committed to run the survey in 2023. So yeah, that's the good info so far.
So Mikkel, oh, by the way, Craig, in 4 years, because the person I found out just ran unopposed, which I was not happy that the person ran unopposed, but I'm going to run in 4 years, I think. We'll see how that goes. But hey, ways we change it, right? So Mikkel, you were asking like, if there's policy. I haven't heard of anything that's really organized yet. But that doesn't mean that there won't be something that percolates up. And I think that's where, again, if we had really thought about this and had this conversation a few months ago, we could have been better prepared to say, yes, this is something we really want to do. Again, that proactive, we want to get to that proactive place. And I think as we're assessing this year, what it is that is the best policy or that our communities and our state is ready for, that's something we really could considering. I'm sure we're going to see things that are related to the decriminalization of certain drugs or substances. I'm sure we're going to see things about ketamine or hallucinogens. But I don't know what those are going to look like. Oh, okay, there we go. We have a tobacco flavor ban bill. And there are key people like, oh my gosh, who's Vickers? This is what I'm like. Vickers, Jen Daly Provost has some of them. And Pulsifer has run positive bills in the past. There was a bill. We're gonna wait and see if that comes. We'll let you know if that happens. But there's also gonna be things that are coming up about the opioid settlement funding. And that will be a big thing that we're gonna have to come together and see how it goes. And of course, my stance is that most of the money should go to prevention. And the state level dollars, roll it through the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health and roll it out to communities or roll it out to coalitions. And let's keep it coming back to preventing the negative outcomes that we're trying to stop when we know prevention is the best way to slow the flow. It's the one that's going to slow the number of people going into our jails and prisons. It's going to slow the number of people that are needing treatment. It's going to slow the number of people that are dying or that are going to need naloxone. It's going to slow the number of people in our schools that are having issues with academics because they're they're using substances or family situations. If we do prevention in family conflict, that's going to improve the academic outcomes. There's so many things that I look at when we start talking about prevention and why the dollars need to come to us. This is why we need to have them here. It isn't just about building a bigger jail. It isn't about building more beds. It isn't about building, building something for the schools so that all the money goes to schools, because as much as I love the schools, we don't need them to have to be the ones responsible for everything else. Teachers and administrators are burning out, and we're going to have a chaotic situation sooner rather than later if we keep pushing it back onto them. They are partners, not the ones that are the default. Sorry, I just went on my soapbox. Anyway, any other questions?
I just had a comment, Susanna, and I don't know if Pam's on here because she's doing school services today. But one of the things that they did, and this is like just really validating what Susanna's saying and the importance of creating those relationships. She had her youth coalition choose a policymaker in our area. Each of them was assigned to a policymaker. And then they made connections with them all year long. They would go to their house, take a little treat and something. And basically they didn't really have a lot of talking points throughout the whole year. Sometimes they would, but if they didn't, they just said, hey, I'm from the Washington County Youth Coalition, just here touching base with you, reminding you that, you know, prevention works and we're advocating for the health and well-being of our peers. Good to see you. And so I got to go in with those youth on the Capitol Hill Day, and Senator Ibsen, first thing out of his mouth, you're the kid that came to my house, you know, and building those relationships so important because then they listen. So just to validate what Susanna's saying, even if we don't have any specific issues, just helping them understand up front how important it is that our whole job in prevention is to advocate for the well-being and health of those members in our communities. And who's going to say no to that, you know? So then by the time those issues come up, they're like, oh yeah, these are, you know, they know what we're about, and you don't have to start from scratch.
To piggyback on that, I also, in Teresa and Heidi and everyone else, because I can only see so many people, what was the story with Representative Chris Stewart? Wasn't it Chris Stewart out in Congress?
Yeah, so we met, this was years ago, with the Youth Coalition, met in DC with Chris Stewart about the electronic cigarette issue. And then he was in Washington County and he was voting on some pretty critical legislation and needed some information that he wasn't privy to yet or aware of. And so he called us just last minute and said, hey, I need to gather up your youth. I've got some questions. And so we pulled the Washington County kids together and met with him, and they were really key in getting some federal legislation passed that helped with policies for electronic cigarettes. So that was cool. This little group of 10 kids at a table helping push forward federal policy, and really, really cool.
And that's, again, it's about those relationships that were built, and so that they knew that they could be trusted. It wasn't aggressive in the sense of arguing and fighting, but it was absolutely about getting everyone's buy-in and showing why this is important and why it helped that community, why it helped those constituents. And look at the recognition, we're still talking about it. So anytime you have an opportunity to recognize someone would be great. Mr. Povey.
Yeah, I kind of, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Susanna? Yeah, thanks. I kind of want to go back to something that you were just talking about too. The issue with schools being kind of the point for everything. And I don't know that this is the answer, but I think there needs to be some really deep thinking, particularly this year. And I'd mentioned a bill that Pulsifer's running. I think to keep a really close eye on that, to make sure that goes in a productive manner and that we're not going to cause more harm than good. And there's potential for that. So keep a close eye on that. But tied in with that, I think that the thinking needs to happen is how much money really should be going into the schools versus the community coalitions. And it seems like legislators, their first inclination and a lot of people's first move is to put a new program in the school to address whatever problem it might be. SUD, suicide prevention, bully prevention. I mean, there's so many different things hitting the schools. And I've been on board with that, that some of the most effective and validated prevention programs that we have are delivered in the school. So I wouldn't say that we want to get rid of that, but I also think that we ought to be thinking through what opportunities there may be to remove some of that burden from the schools, putting it squarely with coalitions. So instead of putting $2 million in the schools to do a certain prevention program, put $2 million into the coalitions and let them work their magic that way.
And I'm gonna talk about things. I agree. We have coalitions that in our county that are in counties, they're 2 counties. I will never forget Morgan, I promise you. But we're trying to build coalitions based off of the high school cones. And what that allows us to do is that once you have an action plan or a strategic plan based on that community that's off of Fremont or Bonneville or wherever, if someone were to reach out to us or to you, you could say, oh, instead of just responding to a request, see how it fits with what we want to do. Is there something that's better? Is there something that's more effective? One of the things that drives me kind of crazy, and then I'll get to you, Mikkel, is that we respond and we have these knee-jerk reactions where we think we have to do this. Like we have a suicide. Oh my gosh, we have to do these things right like this. We have to do all this postvention. Postvention is great. I am not dismissing that. But there's so much we could do beforehand that's not just, again, in the schools or having an assembly. When we think about thoughtful policy, it's going to be something that is going to minimize the negative outcomes or the unintended consequences. That's what a thoughtful policy should be doing. It isn't going to be, oh, we know that we can get the kids because they're in school 8 hours or 6 to 7 hours a day. So we're going to do send the money through the schools. Are we duplicating systems? Are we creating things that are competing with what exists already in our community? There's a lot out there that we really want to be thoughtful with. So keep that in mind. Mikkel.
Yeah, sorry. Just going back before I forgot, I had a follow-up question. Do we know who is over policy who is over like creating the documents and the talking points for UPN? I was just wondering if it was possible to work with them or like if they needed help, or because we have we have things that we've been thinking about, and I don't know if UPN, I know it's made up of all of our LSAA coordinators, but if we could also, if there's
Yeah.
a way to provide more feedback in the talking points so that we can all be united in the state.
Just real quick, so for those of you who may be new on the call or new to this group, so UPN is a Utah Prevention Network, and that is the group. Remember when I talked about the Utah Association of Counties and then Utah Behavioral Health Committee? The Utah Prevention Network is a subset of that. So they're usually housed in the local substance abuse authority areas that have been designated by your counties. So I work for Weber Human Services, which is the local substance abuse authority for Weber and Morgan counties. And I have just hired a brand new coordinator who sits on the Utah Prevention Network. As for the policy person, I certainly hope it's not me. Because I don't know, I recall at the last meeting we talked about it, but I don't know. Is there a coordinator on that could recall and tell me? So Mikkel, maybe what we'll do is we'll find that out and we will send it out via email because, and I'll find out since I'm the policy chair for this group. I'll find out and I will get back to all of you and make sure it goes out when we send out the PowerPoints or the links. So, but that's a great question. And there should be more collaboration.
I would like more collaboration. I don't remember if it was last year or a year before. Like, I feel like during COVID, I feel like it kind of threw off a lot of the things that we had done in the past. And I just remember it being really collaborative. And I really enjoyed being able to work with other people in the state and being united in our messaging. And I felt like it was more powerful. And I feel like we had greater relationships with our legislators because they were also talking to each other and they're like, oh, this person talked to me about this. And they're like, oh, I had a group that was talking to me about the same thing. And I really want to see that again. I really want that to be a thing.
I think that's great. And that should be one of our, subset goals somehow. But there are also groups like our local health departments, our Utah Association of Local Health Districts or departments. I can't remember what the D stands for. Jill Parker is very involved and is very knowledgeable and has shared a lot of the information about things going on. And then one of our largest advocates right now for rolling out funds to go to prevention is actually one of the health officers from a health department, one of the local ones. So that would be Jordan Mathis up in Bear River. So all of these things are happening, but Mikkel's point is right. We don't want to be doing this in a vacuum or again siloed or think we were the only game in town. We want to be, let me use a very weird word, but synergistic and build on what we each have so that we can support one another and make it more effective. So I'm going to ask real quick if there's any more questions because I usually like to end all my stuff at least 5 minutes early. So we have 2 minutes left. What are some other questions that you might have or concerns or thoughts? I'm hearing nothing. And there was a great discussion in the chat. I appreciate everyone using that. I think that's, you know what? I was going with rock rather than alternative. So growing up, okay, Bay Area, if anyone's from the Bay Area, I used to listen to Live 105, which was all about the Cure. David's like new wave kind of stuff. So that's all good. But I went to, total side note, because I have 1 more minute. I went to Battle of the Bands at Southern Utah University, okay? And all of the songs that they covered were from the 90s. And spoiler alert, in case you're thinking that I'm as old as Craig, I went to high school in the 90s. And so I'm like, what is this? And I audibly said, and I didn't mean to say it aloud where everyone could hear me, because it got quiet all of a sudden. I'm like, what is with all this music from my generation? And they laughed, like all these people laughed. And then after it was all said and done, they played Morrissey. And I'm like, what? I know, I was like, well, I went to a Morrissey concert, Lisa. So I will say that. I'm like, there's stories to be had there. We'll have a chat another day, but like, so all that is old and classic is coming back again. And yes, I am now in classic music because I am anything older than 30 years is considered classic music, which is very depressing. Anyway, so that's it. I know. Oh, Girlfriend in a Coma. Who comes up with those songs? Sorry, that's the name of a Morrissey song in case anyone's wondering. So, all right, I'll be quiet now.
You are great. Thank you so much, Susanna, and thank you so much, Mikkel, not just for your presentations, both of you, but also for all the back work that you do to help move the coalition along. I so much appreciate that. Taylor, I'm going to see if Taylor will announce our Facebook winner if we had one for this month. And I'll turn that to her for a minute. And while we're doing that, you guys please go in and sign the roll. Did we lose Taylor? There you are.
Hey, yeah, sorry. Do you want me to send I'll send the roll again, but yeah, for the question, oh, there you go. Oh, so we'll do that. For the question of the month, the winner is Bryn Beckstead.
Oh, yeah. Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so
I will
guys,
get- I'll have to reach out to her and get that sent out to her. And then if you guys just want to be watching for the question of the month next month on policy work, and then we'll go from there.
perfect. Thank you, Taylor. You
You're
guys
welcome.
go visit the Facebook pages, go visit the website, make sure that you're accessing those resources and sharing. So, and then let's see, Mikkel just put a resource in here, spreadsheet for it. Was that the role that you put in there?
Yeah. that's
Okay,
cool.
awesome. Thank you. Oh yeah, and you may have 2 attendance points for November. So just check for that because we had the bonus webinar last week, which you'll be able to find on the website. And then also next month on December 21st, we will have our webinar right before the Christmas break. And Trisha Reynolds will be presenting on child abuse and neglect. So I think that'll be a really good one. And we're excited about that. And yeah, I think that's all we have. Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks. I love the discussions. I think that's always super helpful. And again, thanks to Mikkel and Susanna for all the good info that we gathered today. So have a good month, you guys, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah.
Hey, Teresa,
Yeah.
I have one question if you want to stay on for just
bet.
1 minute. I was uploading the video that you sent me. But it was the UPCA webinar. What was the title of that?
Oh, it was Jacqueline Miller, and she's talked about the school alcohol and other substance policies. So I don't know if that explained it very well, but
No, that's great. Okay, thank you.
yeah, and it was really good. And I did pass along to Logan that you would be interested in helping draft those talking points, that they send out. Because last year there were just some things that I tried to get maybe some edits in there, and it was kind of late. And anyway, but yeah, I did offer that to him, and I'll nudge him that direction again.
I
So
hope I don't seem overzealous. I am just anxious to do it because it's already like January.
yeah,
Is our policy month, and right now we're working on our documents for printing for our key leader dinner. And so usually we like them to be the same talking points
Mm-hmm.
for the most part as our Capitol Hill Day, and we usually just target anybody who didn't come to our key leader dinner there, and so, yeah, anyway.
Well, I'll
That's
shoot
the
him a
goal.
reminder too. I know, and the more upstream I can get, you know, the better. And I am also grateful for your comment about everybody being on the same page, because if the policymakers feel like, oh, all of the entities are working towards this one goal, they're going to be more on board with whatever, instead of feeling like we're competing for stuff. So
Yeah, and using the same language too, I feel like also helps with that.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, thanks, Teresa.
Thank you always. Appreciate
Yeah.
you. See ya in a month or maybe sooner, I don't know, I hope.
Yeah, and send me the link to this recording and I can upload it.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Yeah.